long. Who's ever been to a formal meal and it's 3, 4 hours? They're long. They're not quick affairs. So while it may be fastest and most efficient for you to have that roll, take some butter, butter the entire thing, and start eating, that's not the way that this is done. Okay? So first off, don't squirrel away 14 pieces. Next, if there is butter that is available on the table, we don't butter directly from the butter dish. So we don't take butter from the butter dish and then butter our bread. We take butter from the butter dish, that goes onto our bread and butter plate. From there, we will take our bread, butter, roll, we'll break off one bite, one single bite, butter that single individual bite, eat that bite. Butter the next bite, eat that bite, one at a time. Just one. That makes sense. While I love being at home and mom made a huge pot of spaghetti and you got that hot thing of sauce and we come up with a big hunk of garlic bread and you run it around the inside of the pot like a sponge and you soak all, I mean, it's the best thing in the world, right? We don't use bread, butter, rolls in this context as a mop or as a sponge to clean things up and eat them. We don't do that. Everybody get that. So number of issues are bread and butter plates. Let's talk about glasses, and beyond just talking about glasses, we've got quite a variety here. So let's draw some pictures here. What's that?
Red wine full body.
It's the biggest one we got. It's a water, starts with G, ends with oblet. Outstanding. Good. Awesome. Okay, now you're on track. What do we got here? Red wine. White wine. Champagne what? What's next to that? This is usually made of plastic and it snaps together.
My household.
All right, let's talk about what's going on right here. What is champagne? From?
France.
Okay. Is there such a thing as Californian champagne?
No.
It doesn't exist. There's no such thing as Italian champagne, Austrian champagne, Australian champagne, like Mississippi champagne. It doesn't exist. That does not exist. Coors Light is actually with that. It does not exist. It does not exist. That is a champagne flute, right? That is not correct. So this is a critical point because I'm going to tell you guys a story about success, not a story about failure. So we're sitting here, we're getting educated in this class, and I'm giving you guys this information usually to help you navigate it while you're at the table. It's not always that way. Okay? One of our agents out in Malibu in California, the missus comes down and she says, what? Just got off the phone. We've got more guests coming to dinner. I need you to go to the store and buy the following items. We don't have enough plates. We don't have enough glasses. We don't have enough whatever. One of the items on that list was what? Champagne glasses. So he gets in the car, off he goes to the store, he walks in, walks up to the shelf, and there's these two options next to each other, right? And what he had traditionally drank from is option on the right, but he had sat through this training and he purchased option on the left. What would have happened if he came back to the house with option on the right? Let's talk about that. So we know that champagne is carbonated, correct? So the option that's on the left, a champagne flute, which is narrow and tall, causes the bubbles to rise slowly. The surface area of that wide snap together does what? Flat. It goes flat in just a moment. So imagine if he came back to the house and he had the option on the right and they crack open Chateau Neuf de Pape, right? And we'd start, oh my, great, $5,000 a bottle. Fantastic. Great job. Can't send you to do anything. You came back with the wrong option. You guys understand that, okay? So strongly advise to stay away from that guy. What is this straight-sided triangular glass?
Martinis.
That's a martini glass. That's correct. Which, by the way, just for the record, martinis are what? Gin and vermouth or vodka and vermouth. There's no such thing as a chocolate martini. Like, just because you put it in a martini glass doesn't make it a martini. What's that? Brandy snifter. Brandy snifter. Right? So lots of different glasses up here. And if you do go to a formal meal, who has done this and you're pretty much smashed by the time the thing is over, right? I don't even have cocktails up here before we even sit down. But could you theoretically have just drink after drink after drink after drink and toast after toast? Yeah? All right, so this is a point that we have to discuss. So, Dustin, a couple things here. Number one, if you guys turn back to 39, that photograph, that formal place setting photograph on page 39, that photograph was taken by Dustin. Dustin took that photograph on a detail. Now on that detail, he was working in a covert security role where he wasn't even playing security, he was playing an investor or some nonsense like that to sit at the table close to the principal who had some dedicated threats. So Dustin, any feedback you have on, because there was lots of alcohol and lots of toasts, and how you played that to not get smashed at the table, but also not draw attention to yourself by denying all of the alcohol that's put in front of you, and what strategy you employed there to not make a big show out of it.
So a common thing that we did, because there was also mixers before the dinner and after the dinner, was we would get just either soda water or a tonic and just put a wedge of lime in there, no alcohol, and it looks like I have a drink. So I walk around and I'm just sipping, it looks like I have a vodka, whatever in there, but it's not alcoholic. And we just blend it in, we had a good backstory, and then once again, we were sitting down at dinner, we just kept on feeding them that, and then if they want to press for the alcohol, you can just say, hey, I'm on some medication. You could, some excuses you could say, I'm on some medication. No more, you know. But if you insist on making a scene of it, you can actually draw more attention to yourself. So we just chose to blend in and go with that approach.
In a formal setting, as far as behavior goes, it's normal that if a server is coming around and they have a bottle of wine and they're pouring, if we were to take and place a hand or fingers over the top of a glass, that means clearly I'm good. They're not going to pour it over your hand. Or another behavior is taking a glass and sliding it forward. So simply just pushing it a little bit away from where your place setting is, that sends a nonverbal signal that, no thank you, I'm good.
Just drinking water, red flag.
Yeah, yeah. Let's talk about cutlery. So if you guys look at the photograph on page 40, you can see what have we got going on there. So we've got a number of forks, we've got a number of spoons, we've got things up top, we got all kinds of stuff going on, right? All different kinds of things. So let's deal with the simplest rule first. Work from the outside in. That's the easiest thing to take and remember. Just work from the outside in. I won't say that this is never violated, but a standing rule is that there should not be in excess of 3 varieties of whatever piece of cutlery it is. If there is, then it should come later. So there shouldn't be more than 3 forks. There shouldn't be more than 3 spoons, 3 knives, and on and on and on and on and on. In our culture here, we typically start meals with appetizers and salad. If we're eating in French culture, they'll start with a fish course first, and salad is the last thing you have. You have salad, it's considered a palate cleanser. You have salad before you start to go into dessert. That makes sense to everybody, okay? So looking at that picture right there, who can see over on the right-hand side, who sees the soup spoon? And we've all probably noticed that there's a different shape on a soup spoon versus a teaspoon, right? There's a slightly different shape between the two. You can see up at the tip top up there, there's dessert fork and dessert spoon that are placed up over the top as well. Who sees that little teeny tiny bowl that has a teeny tiny spoon in it up there at about 11 o'clock? Who sees that? What is that?
It's like caviar.
Looks like caviar. What is that? It's not caviar. Great guess. What is it?
There could be some kind of sauce or
You're on the right track.
like honey
Definitely on the right track.
dressing.
Chutney.
You guys are totally on the right track. All right, so we sit down at Applebee's. All right? There's 10 of us at the table at Applebee's. Huge table. The whole table gets to share one salt shaker and one pepper shaker. Okay? How many of you guys have Uncle Phil who's got major heart trouble and that dude puts salt on everything before he even tastes it? You know what I'm talking about, right? He's putting salt on ice cream. Okay. So in a formal dining setting, what is the message that is sent to the staff and the chef if you salt food before tasting it? It's offensive. Or in some cases, if you even salt it at all, right? So I'm not telling you you can't like salt or you shouldn't like salt. If we bump up a little bit from Applebee's, there won't be one salt and pepper shaker for everybody. There might be more. If we bump up another level to a more formal setting, you may have your own salt and pepper shaker right in front of you. If we bump up another level, you won't have a salt and pepper shaker. You will have a small bowl with pepper and a small dish with sea salt in it. Not even a shaker, but a small serving of it. And in this case, that's pepper. There's no salt whatsoever. Just as this isn't a teaching point, but it's more of just a commentary, I find it fascinating that it's offensive to put salt on food without trying it, but they drop your salad in your entree and they ask you if you want pepper without trying it. That's okay. Pepper's okay, salt's bad. It's kind of backwards, but it does occur. It does happen. Something to be aware of. How do we manage our cutlery? How does this work? How do we use this stuff and eat? So do we take our fork and kind of stab like a caveman and cut and or is it like mom with our chicken fingers and she comes up and cuts it all up for us? We cut everything up. How many of you are the person who takes and eats all of one thing? It's kind of, let me eat all my chicken, that's gone. Let me eat all my broccoli, that's gone. Or you're that weirdo that nothing can touch on your plate, like mac and cheese, can't touch the beans. But who's seen all these things, right? Yeah, because that never happened in here. All right, so a couple things. In about 1850, in high society in Europe, there was a split in the way that people began to manage silverware in formal circles, okay? So the American way of dining, formal dining, is a little bit more complex and a little bit more time consuming as opposed to the European way. So European way, your fork is held upside down in the left hand with the tines pointed down. We'll take and we'll cut a single bite from there, place the knife down, and turning that back upside down in your hand, you'll eat that single bite, retrieve the knife, cut, and eat. In American formal dining setting, that fork is held the same way. We'll cut a single bite, place the fork down, or place the knife down, transfer the fork over to the right hand, stab that single bite, eat that single bite, chew it up and finish, transfer the fork backwards, turn it upside down, cut a single bite, put the knife down, transfer the fork back, stab that single bite, and eat. That's why we're going to be there for 3 hours, right? So it's very, very complex. This goes back to that violation of these little rules. And while I might have given Marco my business card in Japan in a way that's not polite, he isn't going to say anything to me. But if I'm in that formal dining setting and I'm managing my fork and knife in a way that's not consistent with how it's supposed to be, no one's necessarily going to say anything. But are they watching? Are they judging? They might be from across the restaurant looking and saying, that guy's protection, that guy's protection. How do I know? Because he's both elbows on the table and he's eating like he's in prison and they're going to ring the bell in a moment.